Welcome back in for another episode of Mindset Monday with me, Matt, one half of Two Faux Couple, here to provide you some solo insights. When I was trying to be a better person, when I was really going through the mud of my growth, I really wish I could have had a message every week to get things started off in the right direction. I mean, I had people in my recovery circle, but didn't have anyone I felt like really got it. And so I wanted to make content like that for people that are going through it. So hopefully you found your way here. You're in the right place. And I'd love to get this thing started. First things first. Hey, thank you to Soberlink. Soberlink has been our sponsor of our show for quite some time. And they've got a new exciting offer. One of the biggest hangups for people to get a Soberlink device is the upfront cost. The economy's tough right now. That is no secret to anybody. And money's tight. So what they've done is they've taken away the upfront cost, and they are now offering device rentals for as little as $19.99 a month. If you subscribe for 1 year, you can get that device with no upfront cost whatsoever. And Soberlink's great for a couple of reasons. If you're someone like me who's trying to reestablish trust in your relationship, what better way than to voluntarily get this device to show your loved ones that you've got skin in the game and that you're serious this time? They get notified every time you use the device. You've got people in your network that are rooting for you and also holding you accountable. It's got facial recognition technology. It's tamper-proof. And it's got instant live reporting and a team on standby 24/7 to review the results in the event that something is a little funny. They know the difference between someone who's just put on cologne and someone who's been drinking. And if something's a little off, they'll actually ask you to retest. Find me another company that has that level of care. So if you're trying to help reestablish trust in your relationship, why don't you be the one to volunteer and do that? There will be no more fights or arguments whenever you come in a little late and she thinks you've been drinking because you're about to use that device in 30 minutes anyway. You've agreed on these times that you're going to use it. It takes that completely off the table and gives your loved ones peace of mind so they no longer have to go searching for bottles or wonder what you're doing. Also, if you're in a position where your relationship's kind of cooked and you're just trying to make sure that your kids are going somewhere safe, Soberlink is there for you in those moments as well. It is court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada, and is considered the gold standard in courts. You can get these things written into your custody agreement, y'all. What better way to protect your children than to get Soberlink? Soberlink is offering our listeners a $100 rebate whenever you sign up using our link, soberlink.com/wheels, where you can use that rebate to apply it toward your monthly plan costs. And remember, no more upfront costs. We used to have a 50% off a device offer. They've done away with that. $19.99, guys. That's all it's going to take. $19.99 when you sign up for 1 year. Just use our link, and that's soberlink.com/wheels. Hey, while you're on the internet, head over to our website, twfo.com, where you can check out everything that is Tufo. We've got merch on our website. We've got sweatshirts, hats, stickers. I got one of my water bottle here that is a little cooked. It's looking rough. It's about time to replace that. We've got recovery rocks. Recovery rocks are a really cool way to acknowledge the journey that someone else has walked with you through recovery. Spouses and partners don't get a lot of recognition, very little in the world. People are always asking how I was doing. No one was asking how my wife was doing. So on the back, it's got our logo. And on the back, it says, "Thank you for being my rock." We actually just placed a new wholesale order of these things. They should be in pretty soon because we're running low. And I love to see these things being purchased and sent out because that means that you guys are acknowledging the path that your spouse has walked when the world really doesn't. You can also check out our program, Independently Strong, there. We've got a program that we built with a licensed therapist, Dr. Christopher Taylor, that is specifically made for spouses and partners. There are very few resources for spouses and partners. And what our program does is it helps you reclaim you. You're reclaiming yourself. We are not in the business of telling you that you're codependent. We are not, we do discuss it briefly, but we are not in the business of telling you to just attach. We are in the business of, let's talk about what you've been through. Let's talk about some of the trauma that you've experienced. Obviously, you ought to have a therapist or someone in your life. This is not a replacement for therapy, nor is this show, and I am not a therapist. I should preface every episode by saying that. But we do have a clinical architect that helped construct our course. In that course, you're going to learn how to set boundaries. You're going to learn what your values are, which is how you set boundaries. They're based on your values. You have to know what you're protecting in order to set them in the first place. We're going to teach you how to develop a healthier version of yourself, take care of yourself. And at the very end of it, what we're hoping is that you're able to make decisions from a place of confidence, not fear. You can get 75% off that course. Go into our website, clicking on programs, entering the code Wheelies75 at checkout. Again, that's Wheelies75 at checkout. I want to talk about waiting for perfect conditions. This is something I hear all of the time, and it's something that I've got a ton of experience with myself. I think that I always imagined that there would just be perfect conditions in my life that would create the space so that I could change and become the person that I wanted to. I think that we all kind of fall into this, and there's been a lot said about it. One of the books that I read and find myself going back to all the time is, see if you can get a look at it there. This is Meditations, the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Stoic philosopher, Roman emperor. Basically, we published his diary. I think he would be mortified to find out that I'm sitting here reading his diary, but it's just full of wisdom. And it's like these, I think it's 12 books, and they're just kind of broken out in these little thoughts. It's as if this guy was just kind of walking around. He would just record a thought every so often. And some of these things are, I mean, hugely profound. And I think it's given wisdom to people for thousands of years. Some of the inspiration from today's show came from that, but also some of the questions that you guys send. And so if you don't know how to submit a question or suggestion for an episode, click the episode description and you can do that. You can text us. Now, it's not two-way. We can't answer your questions per se, but you can ask a question. And then if it's a good question that we think we could create an episode off of, we'll do that. And so this kind of came from that as well. The theme here in the last month or so with these episodes has been, what is it that creates the escape velocity that then drives change? And I think that one of the misnomers that many people have is they think that there's going to be some kind of condition that takes place in their life. Something is going to happen at some point, and I'm going to have to grow from that. There was this episode of Modern Wisdom some time ago, and the host, Chris Williamson, was talking about this interaction that he'd had with a friend. I think it was a friend of his. And I think the guy was getting canceled by like a Twitter mob, like a cancel culture Twitter mob or something like that. And for context, I have no idea what it was about or who the person was, if they deserved it, or I have no clue. But I think what came from that story that was pretty profound was this thought that the guy had. He said that sort of in his mind, he had always felt like he was a fraud. And at the end of the day, he thought that he was a coward. And whenever life really came for him, he didn't think that he would be able to really withstand the test and to carry through and to persevere. And so when this was going on, he had this quote that I think is just so memorable. He said, "I could always hear the better version of myself clearing his throat in the room next door." And in moments of my life where I could look at the reality of my life, and this is basically my marriage in shambles, hopelessly addicted to opiates and alcohol and other drugs, I could look at my life and say, how in the hell did I get here? How did I arrive at this place? And I could look at the version that I wished I could be. And this is this guy who's happy and sober, and he's a member of the community, and he's a wonderful husband and great friend, and he's an amazing father. And like, that was the better version of me. And I knew that he was in there somewhere, and I wanted to meet that guy, but I had no clue how. I could always hear him clearing his throat in certain moments of my life. One of them was whenever I finally decided that I was going to change. Back up a little bit though. I always thought that conditions would create this for me. And I'm not saying conditions don't have a part in your ability to change. Believe me. And we talk about change a lot on our podcast, like all of our shows. And I don't ever want to get it twisted and say that for some people, leaving is truly a privileged position to be in, that not everyone can leave. I don't think we say that enough, but that is absolutely true. There's some people, their conditions are such that they cannot leave. Now, I do think that when you are in physical danger, your children in physical danger, there's like severe psychological torment. You have to do whatever you have to do, and by any means necessary, to get to safety. But I think in lesser situations, we can find ourselves looking at our conditions and saying, well, if things were just a little better, then I could get it together. If things were just a little bit different, if school wasn't so rough right now, if I could just get through this quarter at work, if our finances were in just a little bit better order, then I could change. And the insanity of this when we're talking about addiction is that oftentimes addiction is the reason that our finances aren't looking great. It's the reason that our performance at work is slow, and that haven't gotten that promotion, or that our marriage isn't in the best place. It's everything that comes with it, not just the substance, that the behaviors that come with that are the reasons that we can't get there. And so we're looking at a symptom and we're trying to identify it as the cause. And I was the exact same way. I went through this very same thing. I always thought that there'd be some event in my life that got me sober. I thought that whenever I graduated from school, that would be the thing that, like, okay, it's time to get it together. You've graduated now, time to go be an adult, get a job, get out there, start working, straighten up, kid. And that came and went, and I couldn't really find a reason to change. And then the next one, the big one for me, was marriage. Paige was my best friend. We've been together like 10, 12 years at this point, and I wanted to marry her. I wanted to be her husband. I wanted the honor of being her husband. And I thought that whenever we got married, I don't know, I thought I would wake up the next day different. And I didn't. I just didn't. Didn't quite feel like anything had really changed in me. Started to worry me a little bit, but I had one left in the tank, and that was kids. And I thought that whenever we had kids, holding our little baby girl, I thought I could look at her and I would just, something would snap inside of me. Maybe I watched too many movies, but that's not the way it works either. Each event came and went in my life, and things just kept getting worse. And what I realized about rock bottom was that there was going to be no such thing for me. It was likely going to be death. I realized at that moment that rock bottom was the moment that I decided to stop digging, not when some outside circumstance had placed me in a position where I had to change. Now, some people do get there. Some people do get to that point where something has happened and it's essentially scared them straight. Whether you've been arrested or you've had a divorce or you've lost custody of your children, something may have happened that put you in that position. I know friends have been to prison and things like that, but even for some people, that's not enough. So there's no guarantee that it's going to be the conditions that get us there. And I think that that's just the thing we have to acknowledge. It just doesn't work like that. There are no such thing as perfect conditions. There's only imperfect actions that lead to trial and error and progress over time. That was my experience with it anyway. And as we're going to talk about today, through some of the work of George Mack, Marcus Aurelius, and some of my own experiences, even Viktor Frankl, what we can come to find is that there is no better time than now to take charge of your life and to do something different. And this is not just sobriety related. This can be anything. Hell, maybe you're one of our regular listeners and you're a spouse or a partner and you're looking at this and saying, what can I change today? Maybe it's not just leaving a relationship. Maybe it's not just filing the divorce paperwork for those of you that are on the fence about that. Maybe for some of you, it's a health journey. Maybe for some of you, it's the way that you look at parenting and the changes that you need to make to really raise kids in the way that you would want to raise kids. It can be any number of things. That's why I want to get the point here is that it's not just this one singular focus. And it was never supposed to be the focus of our show anyway. We just kind of ended up here. But I think this idea that we have to have perfect conditions is shared by a lot of people. I think it's just comes natural. I think that we believe when we arrive at a certain point in life, we'll just know what to do. It was my experience that was just not the case. Maybe some people are different. I don't know. If you're listening to the show, something tells me that we might be alike in that. So Marcus Aurelius in the Meditations wrote, this is one of my favorite quotes. He says, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." And that's not just a call to morality. That's a gut punch against procrastination. I read this book several years into recovery and sobriety. And I've always said, I wasn't ever really just trying to get sober. I was just trying to be a better man. I was trying to be a better husband, a better father, a better friend, better in my professional work. Anything that I did, I just wanted to be great at it. I wanted to show up and be excellent. You get one life and I wanted to live it truly. And I meant it. But in this, I was trying to figure out what does it mean to be a good man? And I've read more things than I can possibly count about what that means to different people from different perspectives. And I love Marcus's simplistic take on that. It's stop thinking about what that means and just go be one. Just go do it. Just take action. I think it's a call to action. And I love that. I use it all the time. If you don't want to use the word man, use the word woman or whatever you want to use that makes that powerful for you, because I think it's powerful. I really do. I think that we convince ourselves that we'll become the person that we want to be whenever life finally lines up. And Marcus is reminding us in that moment, you're never going to be less busy. You're never going to feel ready. You just go do it. Just go do it. Put forth the action. And I absolutely love that. Okay. I think that sort of one of the themes here is rumination. Rumination is endless thinking. And it's this, I've always felt like rumination was almost like a coping mechanism for me. The more I thought about something, the more control I could get over it. And through that control, I could feel safe. And that's kind of how I worked through it, because I'm a bit of an overthinker. I'm obsessive in a lot of ways. Paige would argue with me and say that she's worse. And actually she probably is, but I'm not great at this. especially when it comes to my work. I can sit there and I just project these worst case scenarios all of the time. And I'm constantly thinking about, what do I have to do to protect myself? How do I go above and beyond here to make sure that XYZ doesn't happen? And my mind is just spent toiling with these possibilities that may never come. And I've done this too in my personal life and just ruminated forever about, what do I need to do next to get whatever it might be, the next customer, the next promotion, the next house. For some of you, it might just be more simplistic things like a point in my relationship where I can just feel safe to have my friend back again. What do I have to do? And we start to think about a million ways, and spouses and partners go through this as bad as anybody does, because the thing about ruminating personally is that a lot of that is within your control. It is within my control if I answer my emails. It's within my control if I take my ass to the gym. It's within my control if I pick up the phone instead of picking up a drink or a pill or something like that. But for spouses and partners, it's a lot more difficult because the locus of control is external, right? You're worried about someone else's actions and what they might do. And you ruminate endlessly about ways that you could possibly influence their behaviors in a positive manner, ways that you could safeguard against them doing the wrong thing. And you do that by hiding bottles or cutting up credit cards or any number of things that people do to try to protect themselves from the damage that they believe the substance brings. What many people will come to find, though, and our show is big on, is that it's not just the substance. If it were that simple, my God, what a relief that would be. Just remove the substance and everything gets better. What we come to find is that there's so many other problems, which then for a lot of people just drives more rumination. Jeff Bezos had this great quote about stress and rumination. He said that stress comes from not taking action on something you can control. The stress isn't from the unknown. It's from knowing you could move and choosing not to. And I think that was really powerful for me to hear the first time that I read it. And that's the trap, is that we sit there in our heads thinking about what needs to change and replaying scenarios and waiting to feel motivated. That's essentially what rumination is. And it brings on a stress of its own that then makes the problem even worse. And it sort of makes you freeze. George Mack had this amazing essay on his website. He even built a website for it. He believes, if you don't know who George Mack is, he's a writer. He's amazing. And he wrote this essay called High Agency. Actually got a website URL called highagency.com. We've actually done an episode on this. I highly suggest you go and check this out. Mack believes that high agency is the most important personality trait of the 21st century, and I tend to agree with him. But he has what he calls the rumination trap, and that's when you get stuck in the endless what-if loops. You're paralyzed by needing to know the answers or needing to know that you're making the perfect decision. And he says that rumination should be treated like a smoke alarm. The second you catch yourself spinning, it's a signal to act, period. As soon as you realize you're ruminating, act. I think that action is the antidote to anxiety. I've heard that somewhere. That's not mine. I don't remember who I heard that from, but it pops in my mind all the time. Whenever I'm feeling anxious or I feel like something's up or I'm thinking too much, generally it's the stress of what things I have not done yet. And so let's frame this in the context for you, the listener. Let's say that you're a guy and you're trying to get sober. There are a million ways to skin this cat, and I've told you about many of them. There's traditional like 12-step AA or NA or SA, any of those, right? You've heard of those. They're widely available. Hell, you haven't tried it, give it a shot. What's the worst thing that could happen? As they say in there, like they will refund your misery. Like is literally a no cost, no risk proposal. You just show up and whatever happens, happens. What's the worst thing that could happen? You end up the same way you were before. Okay, well, if you don't like that, there's smart recovery. If you don't like that, there's Dharma recovery or refuge recovery. If you don't like that, there's Life Ring. If you don't like that, there are plenty of coaches and therapists and guides out there that can help you on that path if you don't even know where to start, right? If you're someone like me and like I tried to quit on my own 1,000 times and I never got anywhere. For me, it was getting to the point where the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain associated with change. And that includes all of the fear that I felt. That includes all of the anxiety I felt about what was coming next and who would I be without the substance. Like, I don't even know who I am. And there was a lot of fear wrapped up in, well, who am I ever going to, like, who am I when you remove this thing from me? Who am I if I have to start changing my beliefs? But then I remembered that that's exactly the type of thinking that got me there. So I knew I had to do something. That day I finally did ask for help. That moment that I never planned on coming that finally came when things became too much. It was like, there was a 9-month period of our lives after our daughter was born where I didn't get sober. And I was really, really hoping that that was the event that would get me sober. But as it turns out, like, kids made my addiction a lot worse because kids are really stressful and they don't let you sleep. And there's so much more required of you all of a sudden. And I was not prepared for any of it. I didn't have the responsibility. I didn't have the mental makeup to be selfless. I didn't have any of the tools that I would need to be a father at that time. And so my addiction got worse. I just retreated into myself and I was like spiraling really bad. This point in my life, I'm taking on my worst days, 50 to 60 pills in a 24-hour period. I'm drinking a bottle on top of that every day. I'm using tons of ADHD medication to stay awake as I'm taking all the downers. And I was like pharmaceutical speedballing and drinking at night just so I could sleep, smoking on top of that. And like, I was absolutely twisted and lost. And I was like, I knew that I was not going to last long. I was not going to be on this planet very much longer if I kept this up. I went on a business trip and I took a supply with me with the intent of detoxing on the road so that Paige wouldn't see me detoxing at home because I was a closet addict, right? So if she saw me sick in bed, like she would know, like the jig would be up. There's no way I could hide it. So I was going to detox on the road. And like any good addict, I took every single pill the night that I got there because I couldn't just have a couple. I couldn't wean myself off. I was way past the point. I couldn't even control it. And I woke up the next morning to my phone ringing because I had gone to the ATM machine. I wasn't supposed to because we were broke. And it was Paige, and there was a sound in her voice, and she was done with me. And she was calling to tell me that she was done with me. And I just beat her to the chase, and I told her that I've got a serious problem, and I really need to get help. And I don't even know. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. I couldn't believe the words were coming out of my mouth. But it was so freeing because in that moment, for the first time, I had made a decision, and I had been honest about something. And I'd asked for help, and I told her I needed to go to rehab. I didn't even know what rehab consisted of. I knew that celebrities went in there and they made good movies afterward. And like, that was the extent of it. I'd seen Fight Club. Like, I knew everything I knew about 12-step was in Fight Club. Like, that was all I knew. And, man, I just knew I needed help, and I just decided to make a decision. I'm like, I have to make a decision. I was done ruminating. I was done waiting for perfect conditions. I was ready to just make a decision. Was it the perfect decision? I don't know. I didn't sit there and research every treatment center within a 100-mile radius. I didn't check and see what kind of nurses they had on staff. I didn't check and see what kind of facilities they had. I didn't check and see if they had visitation. I didn't care. I didn't give a shit anymore. I just made a decision. I was tired of waiting for perfect conditions. All right. I tried everything on my own. Some decision at this point was better than no decision. And so I checked into a place and I just got willing. I sat there for the first day or two, just for the first time in my adult life, being honest with people. And that felt really freeing. And I started to feel like more like myself, like I was living in tune with who I was supposed to be in just being honest. And then that moment, I kind of had hope, like, holy shit, this sober thing could really be something. I started to listen to the advice of the clinicians there, and I did exactly what they told me to do. And it was a 12-step based program. It's not ever anything I wanted to do. I had no effing interest whatsoever in God or anything else. They just told me, this could save your life. You should try it because everything you've done basically hasn't amounted to anything. What could it hurt? And they were right. I hadn't figured it out. They had people that had. Maybe it could work for me. Why not me, right? I had that magical thought. Started to work it almost 13 years later. Life's good, man. Like, life is really, really, really good. And I'm here today trying to give back to you in some way by trying to get you to a point where you're ready to just start making decisions and stop waiting for perfect conditions. I was introduced to this concept of, actually, before we go on, high agency. Again, head over to highagency.com and read that entire essay. It's gold. Even if it's not, I wouldn't say necessarily it's going to get you sober, but I think it can help you. I think it can help drive that kind of action that will require you to get the help that you need. If you're a spouse or a partner, there's probably a million things in your life that you need to make decisions on, and it can help you do that as well. If it doesn't defy the laws of physics, it's actually possible, believe it or not. That's the truth. Give it a shot. Read the essay. But anyway, high agency is not about waiting until you're certain. It's about just experimenting, testing, moving forward without guarantees. Just like I told you I did whenever I decided I needed to go get help. I needed to try something. I didn't know if it was the perfect way. I just knew that I had to do something now. Something was better than nothing. Action at this point was what I needed. Not more rumination, not more waiting, not more sitting on ass, thinking, oh, well, that won't work. And like judging things, contempt prior to investigation. I was just going to try something. High agency, very much in the same bucket. He is obsessed with the Wright brothers. He says they are the most high agency people of all time. He's got a really good argument there too. And I think it's kind of hard to beat. These guys created an airplane, right? The New York Times said that man wouldn't fly for 1 million years at one point. And these guys read that and thought, what do they know? We'll figure it out. And they created a flying machine, but they didn't know what they were doing. They failed. They took action and they failed again, and they took action and they failed again, but they didn't give up and they just kept trying. Just keep trying. I heard this story not long ago about Dax Shepard. You all know Dax Shepard, I'm sure. Hollywood actor. He's actually in recovery. He's open about it. He's talked about it on the show many times. There was this story about him told by a friend who had gone to stay the night at his house. And the guy couldn't sleep. He was in Dax Shepard's house and he could not sleep. And so there was this bookshelf on the wall. And he walks over to the shelf and he finds a 12-step book, an AA big book, if you will, the blue book, and he pulls it out and he's looking through it and he finds this page where there were dates written on the margins of the page. And there's just one date after the next. And then at some point, the dates stopped. That was the date that he finally got sober. Those were all his sobriety dates. There was probably a dozen of them. And every time he thought, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one. I'm ready. I'm going to do the deal. And he tried and he failed 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 until he didn't. And at some point, it stuck. And I think that you need to remember that about your own journey. It's not about perfect action. It's about imperfect action that leads to progress. Whatever that looks like for you, do something. Please, for the love of God, just try something. I think the fact that you're here speaks volumes, to be perfectly honest with you. Because you're listening to something like this or you're watching something like this. And this is kind of an investment in that. Like, you're not watching this because I'm super entertaining. You're watching this hoping that you get some kind of message that spurs some action within you or motivates you in some way. And I hope that I can do that for you. That's my whole point. That's the reason I exist. That's what I do now. I made a deal with God a long time ago that if he got me out of that jam, I would do anything to give back for people for the rest of my life. And I'm keeping up mine at the bargain because he kept his. Kind of to that idea that it's not about perfect action. It's just about action. I was introduced to this idea of true north. If you don't know what true north is, if you're holding a compass, and I'm talking about an exact compass, like a precise compass, not the kind you get with like the Boy Scout badges, like that little crappy one that cheap plastic and it can break really easy. I'm talking about like legitimate compasses. Sailors long, long ago had these really, really nice calibrated compasses. And as you're sailing, let's say that you want north is very important, right? You base all your directions off that compass pointing north. True north is an actual direction. It's to actually achieve it though is theoretically possible, but practically impossible because it's so precise to actually go true north. But as long as you're a couple of degrees off one way or the other, you're going to be excellent and you're going to be okay. I was introduced to this idea of true north when it came to getting sober and making decisions for the first time in my life. Like, how do you know when it's time to, like, a huge part of getting sober for a lot of people is they feel like they're abandoning a part of themselves that's become so familiar. Whether it works or not is irrelevant. It's familiar to them and it's hard to let go. And I felt like I was abandoning myself and like, I don't know which direction to go. And so we laid out some ideas about what I wanted my life to look like. And we were like, okay, well, if these ideas were perfect, then that's your true north. Now, could I actually achieve all of them? Not exactly. But if I was even within an inch or two, one direction or the other, I was going to be in really good shape. I want you to think about that too, as you're looking at whatever decision that you have to make, whether you're like me and you're trying to get sober, you're trying to be a better man, and you're thinking about the therapist that you're going to pick, and this is the right fit. Just go to therapy. Go to therapy, learn what you're going to learn, see how that works. And if that doesn't work, find a new therapist, but just go. Stop waiting for the perfect therapist. Find a good one and go. If it's sobriety, right? Maybe you haven't found the perfect program or whatever it is, or the perfect sponsor. Just go. Take action. If you're a spouse or a partner and you're in an abusive situation, You think you might need the perfect conditions to make that decision, but you don't. Just make a decision today. Pick up the phone, call a girlfriend, call a family member. Can we come stay with you for a little while? Maybe that's enough. Set those boundaries. They don't have to be perfect. You're going to screw them up, and that's okay. But start. You're never going to know until you start. Viktor Frankl is another example that comes to mind here. Viktor Frankl wrote an amazing book, one of my favorites of all time, called Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a survivor of a concentration camp, and he wrote the book about finding meaning, and even in those conditions in a concentration camp. It is a sad read. It is a very brutal read, a very honest read, but I think it's extremely powerful and profound because he talks about finding meaning. And I think about the context of this conversation in perfect conditions. This is a man that had the farthest thing to the left of perfect conditions ever that humans really have ever endured. And he was able to find meaning in that. He took action and put together some of the most profound words that have helped people out of the darkest places of their entire life to this day. And I'm grateful that he just took action in those moments to find something when the world said there should be nothing. I think it's another example of how we can create alchemy. And I've mentioned this many times. One of my favorite books ever written was The Alchemist. If you've never read that one, check it out. I'm dumping all these books on you all of a sudden. I'm so sorry. You've got a lot of reading to do, it sounds like. But The Alchemist, I love it. And I think that recovery of any kind is alchemy. Right? We're taking these circumstances that are horrible, they're less than stellar, and we're going to turn them into something beautiful some way. They're going to springboard us in to this wonderful life. They're going to be the lessons that we learn along the way because of that terrible experience will be the very things that make us amazing parents and amazing partners and amazing friends and amazing business owners or employees or whatever it is that you want to achieve in your life. It will be that very thing that gets us there. Paige and I struggle a lot talking about the stuff that we talk about here because it gets really heavy. I mean, think about it. Like when we started the show, we just wanted to have fun, inspiring, and motivating conversations about how we'd found something positive. But it's what that positivity came from that became the real focus of the show. And I think that speaks volumes to kind of the state of people right now. I think that we're all looking for something real, and no one wants to sit there and watch Instagram influencer reels about how wonderful someone's life is, because that's just not the case for many people. The case for many people is that things are not so great, but it's the hope that lives in the message that people like us provide, that even in that darkness, you can create something beautiful. I think that there's meaning that we can find. So I'm going to give you a challenge this week. Okay. I'm going to keep this one short. I've gotten railed on a bit by Paige and our editor, Matt, because these things are super long. These are supposed to be shorter offerings to get your week started. So I'm going to keep it under 45 minutes, or I'm going to try anyway. All right. Your challenge this week. Marcus Aurelius also said, and remember the book is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's this version as well. It is the, there's different versions of this thing. Let's see. Translation, Gregory Hayes. That's the translation you need to check out. 2002 by the Modern Library. That's the cover though. But Marcus Aurelius said, do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. So here's your challenge this week. Stop waiting for perfect. Stop imagining rock bottom as some future event. We hit rock bottom when we stop digging. Stop rehearsing the life you want in your head while living the one that you don't want in reality. And ask yourself, what's the one thing I've been waiting to feel ready for? What is it? Then go do it. I want you to go do it. Have you been waiting to go look at apartments so you can get out of a bad situation? Have you been waiting to call an attorney? Have you been waiting to have that difficult discussion about divorce or separation or marriage counseling? Have you been waiting to tell someone that you need help? Have you been waiting to find a treatment center? Have you been waiting to go to a 12-step meeting? Have you been waiting to get a sponsor? Whatever it is, or maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's talking to your boss. Just take action. I'm going to do the same thing with you, the guys, this week. You are never alone when you're part of this show. Everything that we say, we practice in our lives too. So I'm not just coming here as some like talking head saying, go do this stuff, and then I'm going to go live my wonderful life. Like, I'm going to do the same thing that you guys are doing. I've got some really tough conversations coming up this next week around ownership of the business that I'm part of. And it's going to be do or die for me. I'm either going to buy it or resign, one of the two. But I've been avoiding this forever. So if I'm going to do it, you guys have to do something with me. And I want to hear what you did. I want you to do it scared. I want you to just go do it. I don't care if it's messy, just go do it. Imperfect, go do it. Just go do it now. Waiting is just another way of saying not yet to your own life. So let's figure out what we can do together. Let's figure out what we can build. Let's figure out what this next week can look like. And I just want you guys to take action in something. Just take action. This has been a fun one. I think I got it down under 45. Let me check the clock over here. 37:57. Let's go. Let's go. So thank you for joining us, or me, I should say. And thanks for hanging out. We're going to shift our content a little bit. You're going to see a little more higher production stuff as we kind of grow up as creators. For the longest time, we just had a little webcam and this little laptop, and we did what we could. And I don't think it was bad by any means, but it's time to grow up a little bit for us too. These are also things that I've been waiting to do. And it literally took Matt Freitz, our editor and our friend, to text me and say, hey, I have time today, but you've got to call me. You've got to tell me that you're ready. To grab this camera out of the box, to get this light out of the closet that I've had for years, to start to rearrange everything and learn how big boys produce video and content and things like that, and just figure it out. And so we did it. I've already done something this week. I'm just looking to hear what you did. You can let us know. You can shoot us a message on Instagram at TWFO_couple or on TikTok, or you can email us info@twfocouple.com. I would love to hear what it is that you've been avoiding that you did, that you're going to take action on. And this is for spouses and partners and all the complexities and uncertainties that you guys deal with. And this is for people who are struggling to be better men and what you're struggling to do, what you haven't done yet. Maybe you've been avoiding this book, because we're going to cover this one soon too. Why does he do that? I know that you guys want to hear about that one. You're going to love it. A bit facetious, but that is necessary pain that we all need to go through if you're anything like me. That's going to be a fun one. That's our Wednesday episode this week as we go through the checklist to identify change. Looking forward to getting on that one. That's going to be a fun one. That's going to be a ranter. There's going to be a lot of good clips that we pull from that one, I think. But that's all I've got for this one. I hope that that's something to get your week started right as you stop ruminating and you start taking action. Go check out George Mack, highagency.com, and everything that he's written. Check out Meditations. Check out Man's Search for Meaning if you haven't done that as well. And let's just take action. Stop thinking about what it is to be a better man and go be one. Until next time, I'm Matt, and I'll see you.